Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Shamila, also known as Sham. I'm a feminist coach and process architect, and today I have the pleasure of speaking to Glow, and we'll be speaking about gratitude and community care. Glow, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, I guess. I don't want to.
You guess? Oh my God.
Introduce me, I'm joking. Hi everyone, my name is Glow and I am a trans woman living in Johannesburg. I was once a trans activist and I'm done with the politicking now. Now I just want to live my life as myself because I think it's really important that we remove the politics from our life sometimes, and that's really where I'm at in my journey now.
It's finding more joy.
Finding more joy, settling into who I am without the labels and the necessary, the very much expected approach of approaching the world and everyone as I'm a trans woman, I'm
Exactly.
this, I'm a black woman, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's necessary, but sometimes it gets very tiring. It's like,
There's more to Glow,
there's more to me.
and we want to know about the more.
Let's get to unpack it.
So today we're talking about gratitude. What does gratitude mean for you?
I think for me, gratitude means being aware of all that you already have, all that you've already been blessed with. I think that would be really the basic principle of gratitude for me personally.
I was reading earlier about gratitude, and there was this distinction between gratitude and being thankful. And so I found that interesting because I think, we're talking about the transformative power of gratitude. And what I was reading was saying that thankfulness is basically naming something, whereas gratitude is not only naming the thing that you're thankful for, but actually feeling, like connecting to the feeling of it. So almost for me like the embodiment, and then it fills you up to the extent that, it contributes to your physical as well as your mental well-being. I thought that was interesting because I think often we hear people say, growing up I constantly heard, be grateful, be grateful. And I think now that I'm older, I'm like, okay, what does gratitude mean?
I love that distinction actually. I've never heard that before and I love that.
Yeah.
It's like embodied thank yous.
Yeah. I know you were talking earlier about wanting to remove the politics of your life. And I don't want to speak to you maybe as an activist. I want to speak to you as a human. And I think for me, even when I remove the politics, I still think, why is it for people that live in bodies like ours, that look like we do, living in a world that is what it is, I don't want to name all the things, that gratitude is so important?
Why is it so important? I think it's important because there's just so much that happens in one's life, and there's always something to fix. There's always something to fix. There's always something to be paid. There's always something to be preparing for. Holidays coming up now, so now it's savings. So living in all that and just always being constantly aware of the things that need to be done can really take away from being aware as to how much you have. So I think reminders of that are very important, which is why you want to practice. Yeah.
I think building on what you're saying, I think when I was thinking about it, I think, when I did a master's previously, I think there was this part that I was reading that was saying other people will look at your life and they will decide, oh, your life is crap or your life is good. And I think what gratitude does, it gives us power to define for ourselves, the good things that's happening in our life as well as the not so good things. And I think, like, for me, that is deeply powerful. So other people don't define that, oh, you are poor, you are this, you are that, but you do that, right? And I think, and in that, like you said, there's not only things that are tough, but there are also things that are good. Like if I think of an example, growing up, I was living in a working class community. I grew up and I thought my parents were wealthy because there was always food. There was always a lot of food and we would give to other people as well. And later on people were like, yeah, but working class people, working class isn't like, middle class, and you don't have a lot, you are poor. And I think for me, one day I went for a scholarship interview, and I remember the person asking me a question like, oh, why should we give you the scholarship? I said, because I deserve a scholarship. I knew what he was wanting. He was wanting me to say, oh, I grew up in this poor background. I had this really crappy life. And I didn't want that, because I think that not everything that happened to me was all bad, right? There were a lot of amazing things that made me who I am. So when you think about that, your narrative, what would you say when you think about the different trials and tribulations, but also the joys of your journey? What is the importance of claiming your narrative of, like you said, not making it like I'm an activist, but there's more to that narrative.
Yes, there is. Please repeat the question again, because
Yeah,
that was a mouthful.
No, don't worry. I think like thinking about the different pieces of your journey, like when you look at the fullness of the journey, what are the things that you, like looking back now, you feel deeply grateful for?
I am grateful for having grown up in a loving home. I think, especially as like part of a marginalized group of people, that is something that I treasure a lot. I was never really questioned for who I am, or tried to, or persuaded to be something else other than what I am, not for myself, not for my extended family. So I never really had those kind of pressures, and I'm really grateful for that. And also just education. I think education has been such a life-changing part of my growth, especially like mentally. I think I get what parents mean when they're like, get your education. Like, I really get it, because it sounds so simplistic until you actually get your qualification and you realize how much more it can do for you, especially in this world, and also how much more, not just externally, that it can do for you, but internally as well. When you walk into rooms, are you able to stand up and speak? Are you able to take up space and embody that knowledge you've acquired through all of your scholarly years, from primary school, not just varsity, tertiary education. I think that is stuff that I really treasure about my upbringing, because I never really had to pay like the privilege to have gone through school and not have to worry about fees is something I really treasure as well. And I'm grateful that it's provisions my mom prepared for. I think stresses like that, when you're still trying to identify yourself and find out who you even are in this world, can weigh a little too heavy, So I'm really grateful for those 3 things.
I relate to the piece around education. Everybody would always ask me, like, why is it that you forced, like, I often feel like I forced my way to get my education at the end of the day. But I think there were 2 people.
Why do you feel you forced your way?
No, because everyone around me, like in my family, like everybody around me, like nobody went to university. That wasn't the thing. Like if you got a matric, that was like great. You're like amazing. Everybody celebrates, yay! And then I don't know, like, your happily ever after happens after matric, I guess. But I think my mother was, worked in a clothing factory. And my mother would say to me every day, you do not want to have this life. Like, it is so dehumanizing, and and I think I always remembered that. And she said, so just get your education, like no matter what happened. And then I think the other person that really played a big role for me in my education was my grandfather. My grandfather would celebrate everybody, like for every little achievement he would celebrate, and we were a lot of grandchildren, so he was really great at that.
I love that they reminded you of a life that you weren't even aware of how much it would tax you, because I think sometimes it takes experience to understand how much someone's shoes, how tough it is to walk in their shoes, and a family relationship where your mind's like, this is not what you want, trust me.
Exactly.
This is not
you don't know why, but it is.
Yeah, exactly. I love that they stress that, because I think
Yeah.
sometimes parents forget to stress that because they get caught up in their own
Yeah.
lives so much that they forget to stress, like, get your papers. It's a little paper, but trust me, that paper can do the most for you. It can get you paid in a room where other people are paid. It can get you paid just a little more, you know.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I love that.
No,
Your family
and
stressed that.
and that's what I experienced, and then tried to pass that on to younger generations in the family. I mean, not all of them get it. Some of them are like, stop nagging already. And then you're like, okay, one day you'll figure it out and you'll come back to me.
You wish I nagged you
yeah,
more.
exactly. And I say to them, when I stop nagging, that's when you should worry, because then it means I lost interest in you. You know, and nobody wants that. But I want to move on to the piece around community care.
Yeah.
The other piece I think about gratitude for me that is very fundamental in how I live my life, I think there are two parts, right? I think the first thing is community. It takes us away from white supremacy culture, and even neoliberalist thinking makes us kind of focus on us as individuals only. But you and I both know we don't exist alone. We exist within whatever we call community, whether it's your family, whether it's your friends. And so for me, it's the first thing. It makes me feel deeply connected to others and remind myself that I am because you are, right? Like, so I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing for me around community is that it's also like how other people appreciate me, and then I appreciate others. So it's like there's something about seeing each other, right? Like the community aspect of gratitude. And we see each other by celebrating each other, appreciating each other. And that's been very fundamental in my own existence. I have many stories about how I feel like there are people that lifted me on their shoulders at different times and took me places that I would never have been able to go on my own, just because they had the opportunity. So they're like, no, I'll bring you in through the door with me so that you can also see this. Like, do you have examples like that in your own experience?
Absolutely, I do. I was actually I had to record a video yesterday, and they'd asked like one of the 3 unique things about you. And I should have mentioned something else, but I mentioned, because I thought it was a really unique experience, I mentioned that I had an all expense paid trip to and by the way, I need to stress this because this is what makes the story so juicy. I come from a family that hasn't really traveled much abroad internationally. Like, we live in the last town before you cross over to Lesotho. So pretty much if they do travel, it's like into another African country, Lesotho most frequently. And it's not really something that happens a lot where they go internationally. And I had that experience through my community of friends. And I shared that yesterday. I was like, wow, that is really a special experience. And I love that experience so much, because who would be willing to pay for everything? I'm talking even the visas covered, the hotel, all of those costs. That's quite a big thing to cover, and to have had that privilege through community. I've really had such beautiful moments in community, especially with my queer identifying group of friends. I've really been blessed, I don't want to lie. So yeah, we cannot, because I would not have had that experience if I existed in a vacuum and I did not relate and share this kind of vulnerability, because it takes vulnerability as well to want to share your access with someone like that.
Exactly. And I mean, I think that is such an important piece that you just said, like, share your access with someone else. It's kind of, I think it's first of all recognizing that you have the access and that is a privilege, and but you don't only have to have it for yourself. I remember there was this one experience where...
How beautiful is that?
Yeah, I had this one experience where I was, for some reason, I got this beautiful house at the beach. And I was able to rent it for the most ridiculous amount of money for 1 year. I think I paid 5,000 Rand for a 4-bedroom place at the beach. And what I did was every week I would write to my community, to everybody. I said, listen, there's lots of space here. Just come and write, come and just be in the space. Bring snacks because I don't have food for everybody, but the space is here.
Yeah.
And
you just need to be out of your space,
and
and you need to be in a new space.
And I think that for me was very much in my mind is the access, right? Like I have the access. I don't know how it happened that I got this amazing house. And I always wanted to live at the beach. But then I thought, but I don't want to have it alone.
And who else in my community has always wanted to have this experience of living by the beach?
I know.
I'm sure it can't just be me.
Exactly. So that was really profound. So I want to go on to thinking about your gratitude practices. So, the other thing about gratitude and just kind of building for yourself a practice where you slow down, and slowing down is an act of resistance against this culture of urgency that we live in that tells us we need to be busy all the time in order to be valid human beings. So how is it that you establish a gratitude practice, and what are some of the things that you do as part of your gratitude practice?
How is it that I came to establish? I've always been into the woo-woo kind of culture. So it wasn't that far for me to have it repeatedly come into my content online, the content I consume. And I was like, let's try this. Let's try journaling, because I don't really grow up journaling. I wish I did. I think I would have had such amazing memories, because I was always so adventurous in the experiences I sought out, and it would be nice to be able to turn a page and to read with like, oh my gosh, I'd even forgot I experienced this. But that's how I was introduced to it, and the 5 things you're grateful for today. And I still find that even in the new spaces that I come in contact with, like my workspace, they have that where it's like, what are this in the morning, so early in the morning, like, okay, what are you grateful for? And I love that it's followed me in all the different spaces I find myself in.
No, I think it's important, and the journaling is so powerful, and even just this act of writing, right? Because it activates something deep in your subconscious that is, I think, transformative, at least for myself.
Yeah, it's very healing.
Yes.
I found it, and it was also recommended by one of my spiritual advisors, and you need to start journaling, because I think they could tell, like, oh, there's a lot going on in your auric field, and you're not expressing it. Like, you need to find a paper and start, and it was so transformative that it started extending into physical practices as well, being very physical, running. So it is quite a spiritual thing, because if a spiritual advice can be like, you need to get a pen and a paper and start writing.
I also do the daily journaling and reflection piece. But then what do you do with others? Like, you said in the meetings, but do you do any gratitude related things with a community or with a group, with a family?
No, I wouldn't say that. We do have some strawberry moon gatherings that we have sometimes.
Oh, I love
but they're
that.
in between, where we express and share what we still would like to invite in our lives. But they're far and few in between. In a communal setting, no, not necessarily. Probably on a two basis is where we share. Because I do have friends where it's like we'll remind each other, oh my gosh, I hope you have such a beautiful day. Like, it does happen, but I've never really experienced it in a group setting.
I used to run a youth organization, and what we did was every week we would each one choose somebody within the group, and every day you had to express gratitude for something that you are experiencing with that person. And so what it did was it just got us to be more aware and pay more attention to how we show up for each other, right? And I think the people, when you receive something, you're like, oh, I didn't even know that's how I showed up, and so then you also realize how other people are experiencing you.
Yeah, because it's easy to take showing up for granted, isn't it?
Exactly.
The things people can do for you, and especially at last minute. Really, it's like, hey, can you borrow me this? Can you please help me? And it seems so simplistic, but you never really know also what is happening. It's like they experiencing then, and how much of what they're experiencing are they willing to share with you, because it's not always clear if the other person is also in shortage, but their willingness to share can be taken for granted.
No, I mean, I think I remember at school, it was like when we got to school, we would pool all our money. And I mean, at that time, if you had 5 rand and I had 1 rand, doesn't matter. All of our money would go into the pot. And then if we went somewhere, everybody got fed with that money, right? And if you didn't give money, you still got money. And I think that was an act of, solidarity, generosity. And it was also just kind of making us aware that not everybody has all the time, right? I think for me in my family, like the person that I'm the most grateful for is I have an 11-year-old nephew, and he calls me twice a day. And in the morning, he'd call me. I must watch him get dressed. And then he's like, okay, what are you grateful for today? And so, I just started it like with him very briefly. And then he just started taking it on. And like every day he calls me, it's like, auntie, what are you grateful for today? And like in the evening, he'll call me, okay, now what are you grateful for at the end of the day? And it was so interesting to see how he kind of like, I say he's the most susceptible to influence, because I will just suggest something and then he takes it to another level.
So they always need to be surrounded by good
I was saying that to my sister. I'm like, thank goodness we're using it for good. If we were using it for bad, it would be, who
knows how far it would have gone by now.
But I think he reminds me about that thing that you talk about, presence. He's very present, so he'll call me.
And seeks your presence, and
exactly.
It creates such value in your life, because literally you just said, like, one of the things I'm very grateful for, to be wanted and to have someone reach out to you like that.
Yeah, and
especially, I think it's even more, it's so much more pure, especially when it comes from,
I know,
because it's just ignited something. I was like, oh my gosh, I think I'm gonna have to share a phone, because I have a device at home. I think I'm gonna actually have to share a phone of mine with one of my nephews, so they keep in contact, because I know they miss me a lot. But if they don't have a device, there's no means.
No, that's what I did. I got him a device, and the only person he calls literally is me, because he's not allowed to use the phone during the day. So he just calls me. But I think that's the thing, right? Like, we can cultivate that. And now his elder siblings are like, oh, what are the two of you doing? This is interesting. So now they want to participate in it. So it's interesting to see the influence the younger one has on everybody. But I was thinking about, again, gratitude and community building, and how it is. I think COVID for me was such a beautiful moment. Like, it was really difficult for all of us, but I think there was a lot of interconnectedness, there was a lot of solidarity, there was a lot of generosity that, I think for me that was that experience where we would check up on each other. Like, I know Glow is alone, so I'm gonna check up. Are you okay? Do you have enough? Do you need anything? And I think for me, what I keep on asking myself is, what more can we do just to kind of support each other? Because I think I'm finding that at this moment in time, a lot of people are having a really tough time, right? And so how do we hold each other through some of this? Like, we can't fix it, but we can hold each other and extend that. And I think for me that, like, my father taught me that. My father was somebody that lived through this value of generosity, everything about him. He'd make food, and then you're like, Dad, but who are you cooking for? And then he would send food to all his neighbors. He'd cook these big pots of food, and he'd get up like at 6 o'clock in the morning, and he'd cook for his neighbors, because he found so much joy in cooking, And so for me, I guess it's like, what I've experienced is, how do we extend the joys that we have to build community, so that, we cultivate the community of thankfulness, gratitude, and connectedness. Like, do you have, like, can you share any example of something like that? Because it sounds like you have a very active community that you're part of.
I recently moved to a new space, living space, and for my previous space, I had this neighbor of mine, and they were They were so lovely. They literally loved doing what your dad did and coming over. Like, oh my gosh, you cooked this biryani. Come taste. Like, I made these cook sisters. And that was so lovely. It's like, oh my god, that's so nice. Like, so happy.
Yeah.
Just always sharing everything.
Yeah.
Telling me everything that they know about in the estates. Just always updating me. And it was so sweet. And then I had to move. And I was like, oh my gosh, no, I missed that. And I reached out to my neighbor. I was like, no. I always, whichever space I live in, I want to have such great relationships with my neighbors because I enjoy that.
Yeah.
The other day, my neighbor, after reaching out, we're much closer now. They share quite a lot with me, and I was getting my nails done at home.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm getting my nails done. Where are you? Because I know she loves getting her nails. I'm like, where are you? Come get your nails done too as well. So she goes to throw some stuff in a trash bag, and then she's like, "You getting your nails done? Where?" I'm like, "Yeah, come." Like, "At home? Why are you getting special treatment?" I'm like, "Just come so you can get special treatment as well."
Wow.
And then she comes over, brings a whole bottle of wine, and then now we're drinking and chatting. It was such a lovely. I love moments like they were so serendipitous, and it's like, this is literally what she would have liked as when here she is now, she's having, and she has access to this nail artist, and she can call them whenever. It's like, "Okay, can I have a call, in call? I want to do my nails." Little joys like that, because it's really that which connects us. It's the little joys shared that compound to create so much more. Such a bigger joy.
I really love that. I think maybe as we conclude, the thing that I'm getting from this conversation that's reminding me, right, is that, you know, sometimes you see like people blow up this thing, like, you know, gratitude, they blow up like, you know, this thing about intention, the power of intention and all of this thing. And as I'm listening to you, I'm realizing this stuff was always alive in our very experience of who we were as we were growing up, right? Like I saw it with my parents, I saw it with my extended family, I saw it in my classroom, you know, like we were sitting, like I remember sitting in a classroom and the roof was half falling apart, and then we would just like, "Glow, move up, I'm gonna squeeze next to you because the roof is collapsing this side, I'm gonna sit." But like, I think it was just so normal for us, you know, to feel like, hey, we are here to learn, we are here to be together. And I always say my experience of school was a really good experience because I experienced a sense of community. I actually enjoyed going to school because sometimes it took me away from the madness that was happening around me, you know, living in an environment where there was a lot of gangsterism and violence. But when I was in school, it was beautiful. And I felt so connected to everybody. I felt seen, I felt valued. I saw others, I valued them. So, like, do you agree with that assessment that gratitude isn't this new thing? It has been part of us since, you know, we grew up, and it's been something that has actually been cultivated by our communities, our families, and we continue to take it to different levels.
Yeah, I definitely do agree. It just has a word now that we use it to recognize it. I think really it's just a recognition of what it is that's been happening all throughout our lives.
So maybe a final comment from you, it would be, is there one thing that you would like to do to deepen your gratitude practice for yourself? Like just after having this conversation.
I think I want to. I've actually been doing that with my family in the group chat, because I spend so much time away from my family, but we have each other on the socials. So there's this group. There's two groups actually, for the older people and for the young ones. And I love sharing like biblical scriptures of hope and really just positive encouragement, reinforcement of the values that I grew up in, and how they found me again in my late 20s. And I love reminding them, it's like, you know, these are the values we share, these are the values that you should remember in whichever space you walk into. Yeah,
I really love that. I think what I'm taking away from this amazing conversation with you is that we are a living testament of what it means to live in gratitude, right? And living in gratitude not only as ourselves, but as part of others. you know, as part of a community, as extensions of our families, and just trying to be the best that we can be at any given moment of time in the world.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for the conversation.
Thank you
Glow.
for the lovely meditation on gratitude.
Thank you. Hi everyone, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please check out my other resources on my website, www.shamilawilson.com.